everyone. So, in this video I'm going to go over what we could potentially see for Galaxy of Heroes in 2026. So I've got the 4 eras, which you can see at the top, Conquest units and a Galactic Legend. So each era would have 6 marquees and a journey character. And then I've also got team comps that I could see. So at the top, yeah, you can see there's 2 Andor eras, mainly like focusing on one era at a time, and then 1 season per era. What I meant. Then we've got something called Galactic Conflict, which is basically just a nonsense term. It's an era of lifters, basically. Then Jedi Survivor, and then yeah, that's all of them. I've mainly picked 2 for both seasons of Andor, because one, I can't believe that the only thing we've gotten from Andor is Luthen, but also this year is the 10th anniversary of Rogue One, which is also why I think we might get a Death Star raid this year. I don't know, that might be completely wrong. And it might, I guess it might not be like actual, like the trench run. It might be getting the transmission from Scarif. That's my idea for the raid. So for Andor Season 1, we would have Cassian will be the journey character, and he will lead a new team with 4 new marquees, and then we've got 2 other characters that are going to be lifting an Empire team. So you'd have Cassian with Bix, Willman, Kino, and Marva. There we go, once it's loaded. And then 2 characters to lift Krennic, being Dedra Miro and Cyril Khan. And I imagine that the Krennic team would look something like this, with Dedra, Cyril, Krennic in the leader slot. And then I chose Thrawn and Imperial Probe Droid because they're not used anywhere. Even with Jules and Vader, they specifically call out Royal Guard and Tarkin. Not Thrawn, and Imperial Probe Droid has basically never had a time to shine. So I imagine that's what it would look like, and it would be a journey event for a new Cassian to lead this team. And then going on, Season 2 has got something a little bit similar, which would be a new Mon Mothma, because we've only got one Mon Mothma in-game, and she's based on Return of the Jedi. So I thought, have a younger Mon Mothma. She will be the journey character, and will again lead a new rebel team that will give us a new Luthen based on Season 2. Clea. It'd be really helpful if this went to the portraits properly. Vel and Cinta. I specifically spread them out like this because I think it made more sense for Luthen and Clea to go with Mon Mothma, and obviously Vel and Cinta because they're a couple, and Vel is Mon Mothma's cousin. So that would be a new rebel team. And then we've got 2 ships. Now, towards the end of this year, we got the Era of Deadly Pursuits, which, yes, it had Fall and Zuckers, but the main highlight was the 2 rebel ships to lift up Profundity and Home One. So I thought, how about we get 2 Empire ships to lift the Executrix and the Chimera? So I thought the Chimera could maybe have the TIE Interceptor. I know we do have Second Sisters specific model, but I thought we can have like a more generic TIE Interceptor, and instead of it being a crewless ship, you could maybe have Dedra pilot it. I don't think Dedra ever flew a ship, but I mean, you could literally have anyone pilot it. Maybe not TIE Interceptor, maybe another TIE ship, like maybe this version 1 of the TIE Advanced, perhaps. And then secondly, being Krennic's shuttle. I did click on a specific image of this one, which will obviously have Krennic leading it to lift the Executrix and lift the Chimera. Krennic's would probably lift Executrix just because of Tarkin, but because those two are also ships that don't get a ton of use now because like Leviathan's been buffed, other things getting lifters. They're not really used all that much. So that will end the Andor section of things. Moving on to this galactic conflict, which again it's an era of lifters, like the era of Anniversary that we're currently on, which would give us Shakti Unleashed, which I thought would be a cool character to bring as a lifter for Galactic Republic Jedi, with Grandmaster Yoda in the leader slot, along with Gunji, because this is me. I've got to put Wookiees in somewhere. So yeah, I would imagine that the team would be sort of like this. Obviously, this being the new Shakti, Yoda, and then two other Jedi that aren't really getting used, being like Kit Fisto and Luminara. Maybe not necessarily them, maybe like Amagundai or Consular, Jedi Guardian, but something like that. So those three would be the core of the team, and then you got two other ones, which I thought would be a cool one because Yoda, he has a lead Zeta, but he's never been used in the leader slot, and he's not really super necessary for any team. Like, he kind of bounces around from JML, Queen Amidala, Qui-Gon, Kelleran Beck. He's just kind of here, there, and everywhere, doesn't have a proper place. So that's why I thought of those two. Now, this next character is two characters merged into one purely for the fact that I because otherwise I would have had to cut one of these lifters out, and I thought, okay, fine, let's merge these two together, and that is Waxer and Boyle, which again I did have an image lined up, and I guess it's because my browser crashed, so it's not gone properly. There. Have Waxer and Boyle be a single unit, which I mean, there's precedent for this with Great Mothers having multiple characters merged into one. So obviously, this would be a Master Kenobi lifter, and we would also see a rework to Commander Cody. So the team would be this largely staying the same, just with Cody and then Waxer and Boyle. And Waxer and Boyle would also bring in a 212th tag, which was in the Master Kenobi event. I think it was also brought back for the Honda event in that one tier. That would obviously be given to Master Kenobi, General Kenobi, Cody, and Waxer and Boyle. I guess you could just give it to Commander Tano just so it's all synergized well. But yeah, and also, I can't remember if I said or not, but a complete rework to Cody. His second special is quite nice. It calls all clones to assist plus a random ally, or I think it might actually be target ally. And also because on Master Kenobi, someone else is going to be called to assist. So it would be cool if it was or maybe you don't have to give Commander Tano the 212. If it was call all 212 allies to assist, then that's basically a mass assist. His basic is it obviously deals damage, but it mostly is about turn meter gains. Um, Obviously, you can't get that with Master Kenobi, so maybe rework that. And then the second special, the first special is an AoE with a stun. Maybe just upgrade that. And his leader ability maybe make into a unique, because it is quite nice, but not. It's quite nice as a unique. Doesn't do enough to warrant Cody being in the leader slot. But I think with Lord Vader, especially getting 4 new marquee units in 2025, I think Kenobi deserves at least 1 unit to lift him up a bit, because new characters have been coming out for quite a while that counter him, like Leia, Balin, obviously the Lord Vader clones, Bo-Katan Mandalore as well can also take him out. So he's just fallen down a little bit. So I think it would warrant him having a lifter. And what better than Waxer and Boy? And then the next one, fuck's sake, is C3PO Phantom Limb, which this was also in my Force Awakens error concept video. Obviously, we didn't actually get an error for the Force Awakens, which is really annoying. But he would come and be a lifter for the non-Zori resistance. And I was imagining something like this. So, Rose is there. I know she's normally used with Zori. We'll get to that a bit later on. So yeah, Poe in the lead because he's literally the only leader left. Maybe JTR you could put in the lead as well with Vethan, Holdo, Rose. I also imagine that maybe if this was like one of the latter things coming out, that next year in 2027 we could get General Organa to actually lead this team, like basically like I speculated in my Force Awakens era concept. And basically, General Organa's not on the list, nor is Supreme Leader Snoke. Now, I did have both of them, and Snoke would be lifting Phasma. I had them both down as lifters, then I thought, actually, they would probably be better off in 2027, because that's the 10th anniversary of The Last Jedi. So that's why those two are on here. But I do believe we should still see C3PO with a red arm and have him, because like the C3PO we currently have, well, ignoring 3PO and Chewie, his main place is CLS, but it can also be used with droids, Resistance, Galactic Republic, other rebel teams, Ewoks, Ewoks even. So I think it would be nice to get a more specific C3PO that would lift up some of the characters that are required for Galactic Legend Rey, but never are really used. Again, we'll come back to Rose in a minute. And then next up, which I'm surprised we haven't gotten, would be Imperial Crosshair. So I would bring him as a lifter to Iden, and I'm really surprised he hasn't come to the game, mainly because he's already in the game in Rise of the Empire on Bracca. Obviously he would be dark side, not light side, but I can imagine he would have the same name. He would go on an Iden team, sort of like this. Yeah, I'm. Luckily, you like they've got the Bad Batch crosshair. He has parentheses, so I would feel like we're gonna get a crosshair, but also they did the same thing with Mara Jade, and we have not gotten a light side Mara Jade yet. So maybe we won't get him. That's what I'd love to see, and I know a lot of other people would love to see an Imperial crosshair. So he would be lifting up Iden. Um, and then next up, uh, kind of well hidden because judging by this, I bet you think it's Gregor. It's not. It's Captain Typho. And he would lift up Padme. So it would be Padme with obviously Typho and then some other Galactic Republic characters. So I imagine Cup, of course. Clone Sergeant, because he's never really used anywhere. And then, yeah, I threw in Ethkoff because random Galactic Republic. It's definitely time for Padme to get some love, and especially if Waxer and Boyle come to the game, whether they're a merged unit like I've got, or even if they come separately, Padme's getting kicked out of the Master Kenobi team. So, and she's not always even put in there, so I think it would be really cool to get a lifter for her. Maybe Typho could do a similar thing to what Moff Gideon does, which I'm sure you've seen Shakti, well, Padme plus other support characters, which is usually Shakti, Cup, and whoever else, with Moff Gideon, and they can take out some teams like Malakos. If they don't have a Praetor on the team, Padme can absolutely wreck him, mainly because of the mechanic of Moff Gideon removes turn meter on everyone, except Padme's team can't have their turn meter reduced. And on Control the Situation, it also grants a ton of protection up to supports, which, under the Padme lead, gets turned into Courage. And then they can deal a ton of damage to the enemy team. So I would love to see this. Bringing in Captain Typho, who I'm kind of surprised isn't in the game, given we've got some random characters like Ethkoff or Captain Ithano. Uh, so I think he could definitely come to the game and lift up Padme Amidala. Um, I did consider Captain Panaka, but he's more specifically Queen Amidala, where this version of Padme is more connected to Typho, because he made several appearances in Clone Wars and in episodes 2 and 3. And then the journey character for this event, for this era, would be Rey Starkiller Base. Now, yes, this is my Rey bias coming out, but they updated the model of this character when they didn't have to. Like, I know this is when they upgraded Scavenger Rey, or it actually might have been later on when they did Jedi Training Rey. But they've redone her art, and she isn't just called Rey in this. This was I think I was doing one of the feats for one of the anniversary quests, and I did this node, and obviously fought this Rey. But in the Jedi Training Rey event, when you get to the last tier where you're loaned Rey, she's just called Rey. So I found it weird that this one is specifically named Starkiller Base, and she's on the cover art, which I know might not mean anything, but most of the characters on this artwork, I know you've got the text in the way, but most of these have new characters. Like, you've got Stormtrooper Luke here, Yoda is Yoda and Chewie, Maul. Obviously, there's Spider Legs Maul coming. Vader, this version coming to the game. This being, I know we're not getting a new Cal, but the fact that we got the Jotaz obviously makes sense for no one else but Cal to be in the image. And then you got Rey and Kylo, who are just, who are just kind of sitting here. So that's what I'd love for this version of Rey to come to the game, and she would be lifting Zori. That's why Rose is kicked out of the Zori team and put with the new C-3PO. Yeah, that is. You can literally call it whatever you want. Galactic Conflict was the best name I could come up with, because it is just a bunch of mishmash characters that don't go together, like Era of Anniversary. But next up we have the Jedi Survivor era, and starting off, Grease Dritus. I don't know why the hell we got Saw Gerrera instead of Grease. When we got Jedi Cal Kestis, they brought regular Cal Kestis, Merrin, Seer, and then randomly Tarful and Saw. And they left out Grease. I have no idea why. Get this guy in the game. Now, originally, I'd had him written down to be a lifter for a scoundrel team, which, let's be honest, would end up being Dash. Dash steals all the good scoundrels. But I did actually have it rewritten so that Grease and 3 other characters would go on a new team with Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. And don't worry about JML, because he's got a lifter coming in the Conquest section that would replace Cal. So it would be Grease, and then I imagine Seal would be in the lineup, obviously based on Jedi Survivor, which I just called Jedi Master Seer Jinder. I imagine she would lead the team, and then also alongside Enoch Cordova, who we saw in Jedi Survivor as well, and then the Journey unit, which would be a light side Merrin. Don't know what you'd call her. I put it down as Merrin Rebel, which is obviously it's a terrible name, but I don't know what else you'd call her. And basically, yeah, they would take Jedi Cal Kestis, form their own team, and then, yeah, JML gets his lifter later on. So the other 3 characters, this was really difficult because there are so many characters in Jedi Survivor that I wanted to bring, like Ravis would have been really cool to bring, but I had to whittle it down, and then so I've gone with Dagan Gera and Boda Kuna, both being, I've listed it as like new online Force user team because I want them both in the game, but I had no idea where they could go. I imagine they would maybe go with Malakos, especially now that Starkiller has been solidified in his own team, rather than some people taking him and putting him with Malakos. Malakos has lost viability. I'm not a fan of Malakos. I really wish I didn't build him up, mainly because I refused to give his Die Whelp Omicron, especially given that I'd given him his 2 uniques and Seer's lead, and he still is not really doing much. But ignoring that, they could maybe form their own Online Force user team or go with him. I just really wanted both of them in the team. And then we have ZNA4, or as Cal nicknames her Z, which was weird for me because in my accent it would be Z. So I thought she would come and be a lifter to Shorty, and I imagine that the team, if I can find the image, that would be lovely. Give me a sec. Here we go. Would be like Shorty, T3M3, T3M4, BB8, and Lobot. Because Lobot did get a slight rework, but Shorty is normally either not a team that's put down, or she herself is put with Ray. And I went with these droids in particular, T3M4 and BB8, because thinking of the other light side droids, there's like R2, C3PO, they have their own teams. I guess you could put in either L3 or IG-11, but they're also team characters. Like L3 is sometimes put with Rey, IG-11 can be put with Dash. So I thought, like, T-34 and BB-8 are literally never used anywhere. And Lobot, obviously, also a character that's never used. And if you plug Z in there, makes a new team. I really want that. So, moving on to Conquest units. I have 2 lifters for Galactic Legends, then 2 kind of oddities like Darkside Vision Ray. So let's go with this. So, again, really. So this, I imagine, would be the lifter for JML, would be Jedi Training Leia. You could also throw in a light side Mara Jade. I wouldn't fault you on that, but I have Leia bias. You could also maybe use her appearance from... Oh no, that's not. I thought that was her appearance from The Force Unleashed 2. Which itself is kind of an oddity thing, because I haven't played it, but I know there's a bit where you play as Starkiller, like killing old Ben and Han and Chewie and corrupting Luke and killing a Jedi version of Leia. But I thought, well, we could just go with the Jedi training version of her from The Rise of Skywalker. And yes, this could very much be swapped out for a Jedi Mara Jade. And then moving on, you can already see the 2 of them. Damn it. Would be Endor Han as a lifter for Leia. You could say, well, Leia doesn't need a lifter, to which I say I don't care. Yeah, I guess in this slot you could put maybe Bib Fortuna to lift Jabba, but at that point it would then literally only be Leia without a GL lifter. So I've put in Endor Han, but he would probably be named like General Solo. Or he could just be called Han Solo Endor. Yeah, he would go on the Leia team, and I imagine would... no, that's Master Kenobi. That's the wrong image. Would do it like this. So we have Leia, Drogue, and R2. Old Ben, who is kind of the official 4th. He's not always used, but he does have multiple callouts. And then Endor Han. And it would push Leia to being even better than she already is. I mean, she's already the best Galactic Legend, so push her a bit higher. Why not? You could say that's unfair, but isn't it unfair that SWGOH got a lifter when he didn't really need it? Yeah, so the next 2 oddity ones, we have... God's sake, it's really annoying. I should have actually checked it all. Being a dark side version of Luke, which I've just called like Darth Luke Skywalker. So this is from Force Unleashed 2, where Starkiller corrupts Luke. And I thought it would be cool specifically to be from The Force Unleashed 2 because we don't have an X-Wing pilot Luke. And I imagine he would be a two-man lifter with Vader, which I think would be really cool. Which is also why Vader was not put on that team with Krennic and Thrawn and Probe Droid, because he doesn't seem to have a place with the new Vader. So I guess you could put him with Traya, I normally do. But I thought this would be great to have a corrupted Luke with Vader and have that be a two-man offensive team like Darth Bane. And then the last Conquest unit, which you can already see, is a dark side Yoda, like we saw in Season 6 of the Clone Wars. And he would lift up some of the leftover Sith that never get used, other than to maybe be fodder. Where are they? I'm trying to find the image. I definitely had the image somewhere. Oh, actually, I forgot. Oh yeah, here it is. So it would use Sidious, Dooku, Maul, and Sith Assassin with the which I just called Yoda Corrupted, which I thought would be really interesting to bring, especially because we don't really have any other places for another Yoda. It's just Hermit or Grandmaster. I also forgot to show, like, so yeah, Jedi Training Layer would just replace Jedi Knight Cal. So that is what I would go for the Conquest units. Now we get into the meaty part, which is the Galactic Legend, which I would go for Darth Tyrannus to be a separatist Galactic Legend. I know some people will call for Thrawn or Revan Redeemed, but I think this would be really cool for separatists to get a Galactic Legend. Specifically, this costume, which was in the Clone Wars and obviously Battlefront 2. Mainly because it's like, out of Dooku's normal outfits is like, okay, it's the Count Dooku we've got, or one without a cape. And that didn't really, didn't seem enough to call it something completely different like Darth Tyrannus. Well, I say that, but Windu and Qui-Gon just throw a robe or a poncho on them and they're a new character. But I thought you could obviously either have this, where he's in his more Sith persona, hence being called Darth Tyrannus, or you can have him in his exquisite pajamas, which would be very cool and very funny to have a Galactic Legend in his pajamas. So you might notice I didn't have any separatist characters prior to this in any of the eras, and that's true. However, they are still connected to Tyrannus through being Galactic Republic or Jedi. So first of all, before I get into his requirements, the team I imagine would be an evolution of the Trench team. So obviously with Darth Tyrannus in the leader slot, with Admiral Trench, Nute Gunray, Jango Fett, and not Wat Tambor, because Wat Tambor likes to go to other places. He really likes being with Sith Eternal or Ahsoka. So I threw in Droideka, but this could basically be any separatist droid, because the Grievous team, there's always one droid that gets left out. Like, the team is always Grievous, B1, B2, Magna Guard, and then, depending on the game mode, if it's Territory Wars, you'd use Droidica because of the Omicron, or in Grand Arena, you would use Snap because they're Omicron. So I thought that might be a cool little switch. So you always use all the droids, but sometimes you'd use Droidica with Tyrannus, sometimes you'd use Snap. I guess you could also just throw in basically anyone. You could still use Wat Tambor, but Trench is poor Trench. As a character in Star Wars, I think he's really cool. In Galaxy of Heroes, he's absolutely terrible. You can see all of these guys are relict, and Trench is at Gear 1. I would like an excuse to build him up, but he doesn't really have much use at the moment. So I've done a little graphic to show what I would put as his requirements. So the first batch would be Shakti Unleashed, Gunji being the marquee characters, along with Darth Sidious and Count Dooku. Now, I know Dooku has already been required for 3 Galactic Legends, Sith Eternal, Lord Vader, and Hondo. But the thing is, you kind of have to require Dooku, given that it's Darth Tyrannus. And normally I would have said, oh, maybe he wouldn't come because, it's already been used for Galactic Legends. But I didn't think Dooku or Gas would be required for Hondo for that very reason. That CG had never had a single unit be required for more than 2 GLs. And then they put them both in Hondo's requirements. So I just kind of thought, well, screw it then. They clearly don't have rules on this. Darth Sidious, for obvious reasons, he was his master. And then Wave 2 being Enor Cordova, and then Grievous, Asajj, and Gunray, all of which have already been required for Galactic Legends, but obviously you could just require them at the same level or a bit higher. But I think you can't have a Dooku Galactic Legend without requiring Grievous and Asajj, and Gunray's going to be on his team. And then the third wave being Waxer and Boyle, Captain Typho, Trench, and Django. Again, it's just 2 Galactic Republic new marquees, along with 2 members of his team, one being a Conquest unit, which might be a turn-off for people, but in a way it's kind of nice that he's required, because Trench is supposed to be an integral part of this team. So I thought, well, this is nicer because you don't have to go out of your way to farm another character. So I know, obviously Ahsoka required Commander Tano. Hondo didn't require a Conquest unit, which I'm very happy about, but also, given that we do have a precedent for requiring Conquest units, I thought, if they do a Separatist Galactic Legend, you're going to require Trench. And then Wave 4, final one, Boda Kuna, Poggle the Lesser, Stap, and Malevolence. So this is, whilst the others are mostly, I think they are, yeah, the other units are entirely based, except Trench, are all units that have already been required for Galactic Legends. This is entirely full of new ones. Poggle, he's not exactly an inaccessible character, but he's not been required for a Galactic Legend or anything, really. I mean, I guess, Wat Tambor. Stap, I did originally have Wat Tambor on here, but then I thought, oh no, because Stap's not required for anything. And Wat Tambor was already required for Kenobi, and a lot of people are now getting Kenobi, especially if they bought the Lightspeed bundles. So I thought they would most likely put in Stap to be an extra character you have to farm. And then Malevolence, because it's not required for anything. I mean, I haven't even 7-starred it. I think it's at 5 stars. Because the fleet itself isn't great. But I thought, you know what? Yeah, Malevolence should be put in here to be a requirement. And that's it. I did want to fit in. Maybe you could remove something else and put in Tri-Fighter to lift Malevolence. Because I really did want to include that as well, but I didn't. There wasn't anyone that I'd want to kick out to put Tri-Fighter in. But that's what I imagine his requirements would be. And if you guys like the idea of a Darth Tyrannus Separatist Galactic Legend, let me know, and I'll do an event concept. And yeah, that's it. That's what I have listed for 2026. A Galactic Legend Darth Tyrannus. 2 eras based on each season of Andor. An era of Lifters and an era based on Jedi Survivor, with some Lifter Conquest units. And yeah, I mean, I'm also doing this video specifically now because the next Conquest unit is going to be announced very soon, because we are coming into the final days of The Stranger, and I really hope it's one of these 4. That would be amazing. It probably won't be, especially because none of my Conquest units are connected to anything else, which is very unlikely, unfortunately. That's what I mainly did in 2025 with Maz, SM33, Jocasta Nu. And I guess arguably they did with The Stranger because of the new Maul coming. But yeah, this is what I would. Well, the video is going to be called Prediction, but it's also kind of just what I want. Hence why, yes, we got a couple. We got a Leia, we got a Wookiee, we got a lifter for Leia, and yeah, that is what I think 2026 could look like. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later, and we can see at the end of the year how low I was, just like we did with the Hondo requirements. Bye bye.